What's going on, fantasy people? You are back with the boys from the True North Fantasy Pod. We are here tonight doing a little quick hitter. We had to get together and chat because sound the alarm. There is a big injury in the NFL, and we wanted to talk about it. As always, I got the homie Tyrell McLaughlin with me. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Yeah, good. Never good to hear about injuries, but one of the most coveted backfields in all of fantasy football. So we must discuss. And congratulations to the Bucks. We did have to wait until they officially took it down in the NBA there. So congratulations, and
That's right.
sorry NBA that you had the Suns and the Bucks in the finals. It's just so funny.
Yeah, man. So we're here to talk about it. It's been big news on Twitter and social media and pretty much everywhere. Today, Cam Akers has gone down with an Achilles injury. Definitely a big hit for those people who were drafting him in best ball as early as like the top, that just right around the halfway point of the first round for some, I think, Ty. Even first round capital, like that really hurts before training camp to lose your stud running back. But now people need to adjust and recover, and that's what we're here to do tonight. Obviously, there's also some dynasty followed as well. I really want to first, Ty, get into the injury and talk about the Achilles injury itself, because it's not been very kind to any NFL player. And I think the running back position probably would rely on that particular tendon a little bit more than some others, with the burst that they need to have in the hole, pushing off, cutting, changing direction. Like it's a really tough one to come back from. We were talking before about other names, and Deonta Foreman hasn't been nearly the same running back as he was that first year when he kind of burst on the scene with the Texans with some really big weeks, and he looked like the talent was tantalizing, the size was great. But that didn't come to fruition because of this very injury that Cam Akers has had. So I'm pulling up here, Ty, the tweet that our friend Edwin Porras from Fantasy Points that he put out today. He, of course, is the good doctor over there with the Fantasy Points team. We are a part of the Fantasy Points media group, of course. Really, really thankful to them and stoked to be a part of it. But Edwin's tweet earlier today, he had a little snippet from some studies that had been done. And definitely go to his page, anybody watching, because it was some really good stuff, and he cites all the articles and things like that. But basically, it says among athletes who successfully returned to play, game participation averaged 75.4% and 81.9% of the total games played the season before at year one and year two after the operation. So basically that just means that they were playing about 20 to 25% less games than they were previous to the injury. And then play time was significantly decreased, and athletes performed significantly worse compared with pre-op levels at 1 and 2 years after the injury. So basically it says the play time, and not only the play time, it's the level of production. So I want to talk, Ty. What do you think this means for Cam Akers from a dynasty perspective? Obviously, in startups this year, it was like back of the first year having to take him. Do you think it has a big effect on him? Do you think he's one of those guys who can come through at such a young age to come through an Achilles injury? What are you thinking there for Akers' dyno value?
I'd sell if I was able to get anything reminiscent of RB1 prices. I'm selling. There's no doubt about it. We just haven't seen. It's been next to a death knell for running backs. And you even think of like Dez Bryant, some of these wide receivers that just were not even close to the same. It's obviously going to be a case study to watch. You know what I mean? This is going to be a new precedent, I think, to follow with Cam Akers, because, injuries in medical science always advance and everything. So maybe that study this year will be Marlon Mack, who, of course, suffered an Achilles injury last year. That's one to follow during training camps. But I think you're hearing already that he could be a shell of himself, right? So we worry about that. And for me, I'm just not a guy who's betting on outliers. And he would have to 100% be an outlier of all time to come back from an Achilles injury at the running back position and be an elite running back.
Yeah, and I think it would be a really tricky spot, right? Because I think if you're in a dynasty league with savvy owners, you're not really going to get that running back one value coming back to you. So it would be interesting to see what kind of discount or what kind of hit you might have to take on Cam Akers if you were just really ready to offload, or if you're prepared to hold and see if that value can get a little bit of a spike down the road, maybe training camp next year or later on or something like that. But definitely kind of a really huge hit to a promising young career in a really good offense who we were relying on for our fantasy rosters. So it was some shockwaves across fantasy today.
Oh, totally. And I even meant that going into, say, trade deadlines for fantasy football leagues during next season in Dynasty leagues, if you can get RB1 prices, I'll still be selling him at that point is all I wanted to say there. And, you look at the Rams, it's pretty unfortunate because it leaves sort of a black hole at the running back position in terms of what they were expecting Cam Akers to give them. So we have Darrell Henderson, who we both like a lot, and we will get to momentarily. We have Raymond Calais. We have Xavier Jones. We have Jake Funk. And tonight, we actually both participated in a fantasypoints.com best ball 10 with some of the legends over at fantasypoints.com. That is on their YouTube channel, by the way, the stream for that best ball draft. Check out the website and subscribe, 21 True North 10, all caps. But I bring that up, Trav, just to say that both Xavier Jones and Jake Funk got drafted in a 20-round best ball draft that we were in tonight. My boy, Raymond Calais, did not. And that's the guy I want, to be honest, out of this trio. Give me the little RC race car. The Raging Cajun is somebody I was kind of a sneaky fan of. I was calling him Anthony McFarland light, basically. He could return some kicks, so he has a little bit of special teams upside. He can do a lot of the stuff Darrell Henderson can do if he were to get injured again. I say think of Raheem Mostert as a really good comp for Raymond Calais, who we know really looks good because of the outside zone run scheme that is in San Francisco. And, we obviously covet here in the Shanahan scheme or in the McVay scheme. Jake Funk, on the other hand, I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, he tested out well. If he's sitting on your waiver wire in Dynasty, you can throw a few shekels at him, but he is my least favorite of this trio. What do you think about Xavier Jones? Because I really don't know anything about him, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think he's the guy that I want, actually, Ty. Just because he's I think Jake Funk was drafted in the 7th round. Xavier Jones was an undrafted free agent, but I think, potato kind of with a 7th round running back, right? I hate to break it to you, Ty, but I'm not into the Raymond Calais love. I totally understand that he's versatile. I get that he's going to return kicks, but I honestly think that he could make the team as a 3rd running back anyway in order to do that stuff. I don't know if that's going to be a factor in them trying to replace with another running back is the special teams, just because they weren't expecting that out of Cam Akers. But I think he could be versatile, and Sean McVay using him could be pretty slick. So that would be interesting to see. But I think I'm going Xavier Jones. The guy, he had, I was looking a little bit, and I think last year he had over 1,200 rushing yards. And he's got 2 seasons in college where he caught 20 passes as well. And then I think just with his size at 5'11", 208, he can give you some of what Akers was going to give you potentially. I don't know a ton about him, but I know that on that draft you were talking about, Wes Huber was giving him a little bit of love, and Joe Dolan eventually took him in that draft on the recommendation of Wes Huber, who's somebody I trust in the Devy game because I'm not nearly as in tune as Wes is. He's just like, it's insane. You guys were talking about people drafted. You were on the stream and I was just drafting, but you guys were talking about guys that were drafted in like 93, and Wes is just like throwing shit out there. So if he's endorsing Xavier Jones in any which way in a backfield where I don't think any of the options are great, I think I'm going to trust an opinion like that with the things that I've seen as far as size and college production and stuff like that. So that's where I would lean for that. But I think it's a backfield that we want pieces of, right?
Totally. And, honestly, all those names might end up being relatively obscure fantasy names by the end of training camp when we start seeing some bodies get cut and things like that, because we are pretty confident in saying the Rams are going to add a running back, right? Maybe 2. What kind of running back do you think they add?
Well, I think it kind of goes along with the reason why I chose Xavier Jones there is they're going to want some size, right? they're probably going to throw the ball more in the red zone this season than they have previously the last 2 seasons, I believe. But I don't think they're going to abandon the run in the red zone, and they're going to want some size for that. Like I think Darrell Henderson can offer some of that, but I think they still do want some size. They're not going to leave Darrell Henderson out on an island as the only player, and I just think that they have enough guys who can be that smaller, speedy pass catcher, where they are going to add something different than that. So I think that's kind of the route that they're going to go, is probably somebody.
What about like a Sony Michel? What about like a Sony Michel?
I don't mind that at all. I think like it would be interesting for them going from Gurley and his lack of knees to Cam Akers, who looks very promising but gets this Achilles injury, and then to Sony Michel, who also has a lack of knees. But I think he could do well in there. Like, I think that's an offense that, he could, in limited work, which is what he needs, do well there. I threw out a tweet earlier today, Ty, just saying, because a lot of people were saying James Robinson and that they should go after James Robinson and that Urban Meyer should trade James Robinson. And I just don't see that happening. I think it's very similar to the Gardner Minshew situation, where there's no point in them trading him because he's cheap. He's behind a rookie. And James Robinson might not even be behind a rookie, right? So I think James Robinson is going to stay put in Jacksonville. But I threw out some other names as far as the trade market, because that's obviously probably where they would go for Sony. And it's interesting that we had 2 guys. He could get cut. Yeah, they got to wait a while to figure that out, though, potentially, right? And I'm not sure they're going to want to wait till that.
You have 3 guys. But the thing is, you have 3 guys. Yeah. Like, it's pretty obvious that they're going to keep Ramondre and Damian Harris. And then, like, do you need Sony all of a sudden, who's in the final year of his contract? And
we'll see when they decide to pull that
he's
trigger.
Finally healthy. It's a good time to cut him.
Yeah, for sure. So, I did throw out some other names there, and it's funny that we were talking about Sony and Gurley's knees, because one of the names was Marlon Mack, who actually is coming back from an Achilles, which is what Cam Akers got. So maybe thinking of that, they might stay away. Sony was on the list that I put out today. Leonard Fournette was on there, but it could be any of the Bucks backs that they decide that they don't want. Like, could even go to the 2020 class.
Raymond Clay, man.
Keyshawn Vaughn, maybe.
Yeah.
And then one that I would just like to see is Devin Singletary. That'd be kind of cool. That would free up Zach Moss and Devin Singletary a little bit. And then Melvin Gordon was floated out there a bunch as somebody who is going to end up out of town anyway at some point with Javonte coming in. So what time is better than the now, I guess. But I don't necessarily see that one happening so much. Just a few names there, but I think it's one to monitor, because I'm going to potentially want to invest there if I can see that guy's getting some good run, and if they invest in him. But I'm also curious as far as what kind of capital they have to acquire anybody in a trade.
Exactly.
Because they trade all their shit away. I mean, they might be able to, like, I don't know, they have like 5th, 6th, 7th, but I don't think you're necessarily getting a starting caliber running back for that.
No, then that's what you're getting at with James Robinson, no doubt. So getting into Darrell Henderson, who we both like, and, we've made the point now that it's a very thin running back depth chart for the Rams, but it's also a very thin market. Whether you think Devontae Freeman or some of these free agents might be able to make any impact remains to be seen, and they haven't even been signed by teams yet. So Darrell Henderson is a very talented back, right? And we really liked him coming out of Memphis. So did the Rams, right? They ended up trading up, even though they had limited capital, for Darrell Henderson in that draft. The guy was over 8 yards per carry across his college career. He actually has the all-time record that's been held since they tracked it since 1956 on sportsreference.com. He has the highest yards per carry of all time in that tracking era. It's just insane. And that's because he's one of the most explosive running backs. Like, almost 25% of his carries went for 10 plus yards in college. You could compare that to some of the super 2020, running backs that we just enjoyed last year. And only former teammate Antonio Gibson had a higher explosive run rate in college on a much smaller sample size. So, yeah, and it's similar when you look at 20 plus yard carries. It's just Javonte Leak who leaks in there instead of Gibby. And I think he had more total 20 yard carries than any 2020 running back. Cause that's what I did. I tweeted out Darrell Henderson last year when I was in love with Darrell Henderson last year, just like the year before. And I tweeted out him versus the 2020 running backs. And it's just incredible how he came out. And it's in large part due to that, like, super 2019 campaign it was kind of one for the ages. Like he was just behind, I think, Jonathan Taylor in rushing in the nation, only behind Travis Etienne in touchdowns in the nation. So this is all to say, Trav, that I probably have him right around running back 24 or so. And I haven't nailed it down. I haven't gone in there and updated them yet. But if I said running back 24 is the bar, would you go over or under for Darrell Henderson?
Under being he finishes better, like 23 or
better. Over is you're smashing that. You want.
Oh, I'm smashing that for sure, 100%. And it doesn't matter necessarily who they add, right? Because I don't think any of those guys that I mentioned are going to get into McVay's good graces and be able to be that 60% guy in the backfield. I think Darrell Henderson, regardless of who they bring in, is going to be right around that 60 to 65% guy. And I think with that explosiveness that you alluded to, he can really, really produce on that. Like the big plays are going to be nice. He's still going to pop off for some touchdowns. He caught a lot of passes in college, and he will probably get a pretty decent target share in LA. I think like their target share has been out of whack the last couple of years. So it's really hard to say that he's going to get like a solid target share. But, if he gets 30 to 45 catches or something like that, I think that's plenty for him to, on limited carries with whoever they bring in, still produce top 24 numbers. That offense is just so good. They were like a top 5 rushing volume team last year. Matt Stafford, they're going to have better quarterback play. So I'm all about that Hendo life. And I've been talking about Darrell Henderson for a while, and like, it's not like victory lappy or anything like that, because I never would want Akers to get injured. But the thing with that is like, I was thinking that Darrell Henderson, and I think you were of the same mind too, that Darrell Henderson was going to have some standalone value, even with Cam Akers there. It's not going to be consistent, but he's going to give you some weeks, right? And so that's where I was coming from on that, even before the Akers injury. And so it's not to, victory lap a guy's injury, because I really liked Cam Akers and I was excited to see what he could do. But I think for 2021, at least, your Darrell Henderson shares feel a lot better.
No, definitely. I have him like, I was just looking at it, like probably in that tier with like a Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, maybe Chase Edmonds would be at the back of that tier. So that's kind of where Henderson's going to slide into my ranks, I'm thinking, because it's a pretty obvious running back cliff there almost, you know what I mean? Once you get past that range.
Like even in the draft we were in today.
Off the running back dead zone. Yeah.
Like you see it.
Like
I took Myles Gaskin
in that draft.
Yeah, and I took Myles Gaskin in the middle of the 5th or something, and that's like, to me, that was where a huge cliff was, so I had to do it, right? And I think Henderson just kind of beefs that up, obviously, but it's going to be, when he's getting into that 4th, 5th round in some drafts, it's going to be a little bit trickier to take him there, do you think? Or do you think you would be okay with that?
Well, the problem is I do see the downside, right? Like he's not going to see the volume that Akers was about to see, right? Probably not even close. And, he's battled with ankle injuries in both seasons now. So can he even endure like 20 touches per game for an extended period of time? I'm not sure with Darrell Henderson. That remains to be seen. So, and how much can we even glean from the preseason, right? You mentioned we might have to wait. I'm actually anticipating that we do have to wait to see which running back they prefer who gets cut, almost. So we might get a lot of looks at some of these backup running backs, but I'm not sure how much they're going to run out Darrell Henderson, worrying about that durability, right? And I just, I don't know. It's tough because even having said that, it is just so ugly behind him, right? And we do like this offense. I mean, we keep saying that this offense could be the best offense we've seen in the McVay era, right? Which is saying a lot considering they put up, over 6,500 yards, 12th most ever in 2018. But there's so many things that I think point towards a lot of improvement in this offense. Actually, one thing I was planning to do a video or a little tweet about was the 2 tight end sets and the 3 wide receiver sets and stuff. And, they've averaged under 4 yards per carry in those 2 tight end sets, 12 personnel and back-to-back seasons according to sharpfootball.com. So I kind of hope that failed experiment is over. And then that would definitely give some more upside to the run game with some more 3 wide receiver sets, some more yards before contact for an explosive running back like him. But what do you think about some of the downside? Because I've talked a lot about that and how much it leans towards the wide receivers in this offense with Stafford coming in, things like the Rams, throwing the ball more inside the red zone because they've been one of the pass heaviest teams in the McVay-Goff era inside the red zone. And they've also scored the highest percentage of their touchdowns from inside the red zone. So we're hoping for more touchdowns from outside the red zone. Do you think some of that caps a little bit of Henderson's upside, or do you think that would affect the running back who comes in, who might play more of that goal line role and stuff?
Yeah, I think it would probably be more like the goal line role guy, because I think Darrell Henderson, especially in the passing game, can be a part of that big play offense. You know what I mean? He can be one of those guys who's taking it out of the backfield, busting it off for 40 yards and a touchdown. So I think like Henderson could potentially fit that. Whereas a bigger back, they might just not get those opportunities with what we expect to be a higher pass to rush ratio, as well as maybe some more big play touchdowns. I think the downside for Henderson is, like you alluded to, the volume is not going to be what Akers was going to have. It's going to be less for sure. If we looked at those last 4 games that Akers played, which is the only 4 games that he got 60% snaps, he had 39% of the team's opportunities in those 4 games to end the season last year. That is like the next best guy in those 4 games. It was 5 weeks. The next best guy was 15% of the team opportunity. So he more than doubled that,
Insane.
Almost tripled it. It was crazy, but we're not going to get that. And I think like this explosiveness we're talking about doesn't necessarily need that kind of volume with Darrell Henderson. So I think that's kind of okay. Like I'm okay with that. I'm not necessarily expecting 20 carries a game. I'm just expecting, 10, 15, a few receptions and some big plays,
Yeah, I would push back a little bit on the pass catching. Like that's the other downside I see, or something that I really want to see return in this Rams offense. I hope it does, but is Stafford more inclined or less inclined to check down with Goff? I don't even know, because it is a talent thrown to the running back position, but we also expect him to look deep a little bit more and stay inside structure better. So I don't know, but they do return all 5 offensive linemen. So I think, that helps Darrell Henderson too. I wanted to throw that out there. But the pass catching is what I think it'll all come down to, right? Because, only 87 catches over the past 2 seasons combined for the Rams running backs. And, I know a lot of it was Todd Gurley and his talents, but they had over 70 pass catches, receptions at the running back position in both those seasons. And it's no coincidence that they were top 5 in PPR points from the running back position in both those years, 2017, 2018. And then the last 2 years, they've been 28th and 21st in PPR points from the running back position. So yeah, it'll all come down to the pass catching for Darrell Henderson. I think the goal line back that comes in might jump the shark when it comes to a fantasy draft, his average draft position value. But I think all of this still enforces even more the value of these wide receivers in La La Land.
Yeah, absolutely. I think exactly. It just makes it so they are a lot more secure. If anything, we know this team is going to skew towards the pass now, because they're not necessarily going to have that horse at the top in Cam Akers to carry that load for the team. Darrell Henderson is not that. And I love the point that you made about Stafford. Like, is he going to want to throw it downfield? Because we've seen both out of him. We've seen him pepper Theo Riddick with targets in Detroit. We've seen him bomb it down the field to Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay. And I think it's interesting because a lot of it can be like the quarterback's tendency, because it's not like these running backs aren't out in the flat running routes and things like that with Jared Goff in there. So it's like he's not choosing to throw there. So I wonder if Stafford will do that. But like I said, I think he needs like maybe 30 receptions and he can probably get it done as that top 24. And I think a lot of it's just about expectations. Don't expect a Cam Akers season, because you're not going to get it out of Darrell Henderson. Expect, maybe 3/4 of Cam Akers, and I think you can be happy with him. So that's kind of where I'm sitting. And I'm happy with paying that price for Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, pretty much same page here. And, I would go back to how I think this is making the Rams more incentivized to do some of the things I've already been suggesting this offseason, now that they don't have a talent or a bell cow like Cam Akers at their disposal. So I think a lot of this is very positive for the pass catching options, even going as deep as Tyler Higbee, because we expect that 10 zone pass rush to ratio to be curved, and even a Deshaun Jackson who will pay off as a great late round pick, I think. Who you can either drop or he'll give you a few spiked weeks before he gets
100%. 100%.
And then Robert Woods, top 15 all day. Cooper Kupp, top 24 all day still.
Yeah, and I think could be top 15, but that's just me.
Yeah, and Robert Woods could be wide receiver 1 overall.
Oh, damn. You heard it here first, folks. All right, Ty. Well, I think that's a wrap for this video tonight. Hopefully anybody who tuned in enjoyed and got some good information out of it, and maybe we made a little bit more sense of that situation. Feel free to hit us with your feedback, toss a comment on the YouTube video or wherever you're watching. We really like to hear that stuff. Again, that promo code that Ty tossed out earlier for fantasypoints.com is 21 True North 10, and that will get you 10% off what's already the best deal on the market as far as fantasy resources to get the winning edge. So Ty, we're coming up this Thursday. We're going to be running our regular pod. It's going to be really exciting. We've got Zach Reed coming on. Thanks for making the time tonight, buddy. I appreciate it. It was fun to jump on with you.
No, pleasure was all mine. And pump for at Tacit Assassin 13 on Thursday.
Nice. Nailed that. All right. So until then, thanks for listening, guys. Take it easy. Peace.